And the whitefish, maybe. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our third week of Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to be speaking about a very relevant, even to those who work in the workforce. It's a very interesting topic. Today we're going to be talking about retirement, actually. This is something that is hinted very strongly in the book that we've been discussing and studying, the Hayom Yom. The Rebbe compiled a book in the 1940s for a daily lesson, a daily custom or a lesson, a life hack. So today we're going to be studying the Hayom Yom of the 6th of Cheshvan. 6th of Cheshvan, you see your pages. 6th of Cheshvan, that usually falls out in mid or late October, early November. This is one of the fall months. Hey, Fran, welcome. Sorry you're missing the whitefish here, but welcome here. And Dorit. So today's Hayom Yom we're going to discuss is going to be talking about how to spend your life in retirement, but it's not just retirement, but especially in retirement. Or it could be even your days off from work. How to spend your life in general.
I got one question.
Oh, go for it.
The Alto Rebbe, which one is he?
The Alter Rebbe is the first one. First Chabad Rebbe, who I'm named after actually, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. And he is the author, the founder of the Chabad movement. The founder of the Hasidic movement, which encompasses all the Hasidic sects, is the Baal Shem Tov. He was born in the late 1700s. And the founder of the Chabad movement, which happened 2 generations later, is the Alter Rebbe. He authored the book, the Tanya, which is a philosophical book of Hasidic thought on all the Hasidic ideas, Kabbalah, etc. And he is the first Chabad Rebbe. 7 generations later is the Rebbe.
Oh, okay.
So he was, the Alter Rebbe was Rebbe in the 1800s. In the 1800s. Yeah. So let's read this inside. I always feel bad asking people to eat to read because they're in the middle of eating. But Mark Mitchell, want to help me out over here? Go for it.
When the
Alter Rebbe.
When the Alter Rebbe wished to bless our Ecclesia
Yep.
Leaper with wealth, the latter said he did not want it. He did not want wealth to distract him from studying Hasidus and from his involvement with Avoda.
So what happened was Rabbi Yukasiel Lepler was a follower, a disciple of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe decided, he said, Rabbi Yukasiel, I would like to give you a blessing. I want to give you a blessing that you should be very wealthy. Right? So what did Rabbi Yukasiel answer? Thanks, but no thanks. Yeah. Because if I'm wealthy, I'll be busy managing my wealth. I won't have time to serve God. I want to be able to study all day. I don't want to have to worry about managing my estates and everything. Thank you, but no thank you. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe says, okay, no problem. How about this?
Let's see.
When the Rebbe.
Sorry.
End of the second line. When the Rebbe.
When the Rebbe wished to bless him with longevity, his answer was, but not peasant ears, men that have eyes but do not see, who have ears but do not hear, who do not perceive godliness, nor do they hear godliness.
So this is what he responded to him. Maybe a little hard to read it, but the Alter Rebbe said, okay, you don't want wealth? No problem, I won't give you wealth. I'll tell you what I'll give you. I'll give you a blessing for a long life. He says, so he thought about it. He says, you know something? I'll take that blessing on one condition. He's already giving conditions to the blessing. He says, I'll take the blessing on condition that my life is not a long life. I don't want to live to 110 years old just because it's cool to live to 110 years old. I don't need such a life. I don't want to just have a life just because. I want to have a life full of meaning. I want to have a life that's meaningful, purposeful, and I'm doing something with my life. If I'm not doing something at 103 years old, then why am I living? Take me out of this world. Long life, he said, is only meaningful if it's full of meaning and purpose. So he said, I'll take the blessing of long life as long as I can have it, not as peasant years, the way he termed it. I don't want it just drinking and just sitting and playing golf all day. I don't want that. That's nice. It can be fun, but after a while, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a meaningful life. Otherwise, no thank you. Essentially, what was he trying to imply? What was Rebbe Yekusiel trying to imply with this blessing? He was saying, sometimes we think that the ultimate blessing lies within freedom, sitting and being able to do nothing, retiring, right? You speak to most Americans today, and you ask them what they look forward to is retirement, right? So they can finally collect their pension, collect their Social Security, collect whatever it is. They don't have to go to work every day. And on the one hand, not such a bad thing, because work adds a lot of stress to your life. It adds a lot of unnecessary things to your life sometimes. And someone who has enough savings can live comfortably, or at least comfortable enough, even post-work. So they don't need to be in the office every day. So why sit there and schlep all day and work hard, right? On the one hand, it is a very good thing. On the other hand, you speak to a lot of people who retire. The first few years are amazing. And then slowly but surely they start saying, wait a second, but what am I doing? And that's why most people end up at one point or another trying to find something meaningful with their life. Not just, another DIY project, but they try to find something with meaning, with purpose, trying to help people. Because however much we like doing nothing, we like picking up our feet on our couch and watching TV, after a while it's not vacation anymore, right? It becomes a burden to do that. We want to try to do something that adds meaning and purpose to our week, to our day, to our life. And this is actually a very important topic because I see it so clearly with many, many different people. Even when they're working, they're all working to get to retirement. And it's a terrible attitude because if the point of retirement is that then you can finally do things that you always wanted to do, not just, play sports but actually do meaningful things, then of course retirement is an unbelievable thing. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. But if retirement is just that you can sit and do nothing, then that's actually the biggest curse you can give yourself and ultimately what it's going to do to your brain and to your psyche is worse than working. Worse than stress sometimes, because when you don't have what to do, we all know what happens when that happens. It plays with your mind and you start dreaming, you start fantasizing, you start hallucinating even. Right. You take people sitting in retirement homes, because they're not doing much, what happens to them? Not good things. The ultimate goal is that you retire and you get to do things you always wanted to do. So it's the best of both worlds. That you're free, but not free to do nothing, free to do whatever you really should be doing. Most people should not be sitting behind a desk. Why do we sit behind a desk and work for all those years? So that we can retire to do things that we don't have to do, that we didn't have to do until now. We don't want to sit behind a desk. We work because we need to provide for our family. We work because we have no choice. We have to create a vessel in order that God's blessing should manifest itself in this world. Working is a medium. Working is a means to an end. Working is a means to provide to the family. If work is about work itself, then you're losing and you're missing the point. Working, obviously, everything we do should not just be a means. Everything we do should have meaning as well. But the work itself, sitting behind a computer and putting in numbers in the computer, is all nice and dandy. But that's not what we're meant. We weren't put into this world. Robots, open any AI system, they can do almost what we're doing today. But ultimately, we need humans to do certain things that AI can't do. But give it a few years, they'll probably catch up to humans. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we don't need to be behind a desk, but we need to make a living. Why do we need to make a living? So we can provide for our family. Why do we need to provide for our family? So that we can live comfortably and be able to make the world a brighter place. Because if we're busy struggling for a livelihood our entire life, then we can't live. If you can't live, you can't serve God. You can't serve God, then why are you here in this world? Just to live?
I had a friend who was he was getting ready to retire, and he finally bought a house that he liked in North Stamford, and so he was very happy about that. He was working for, I can't remember the name of his boss, but this fella had really huge office buildings in Manhattan and other places. And so my friend was I guess he was considered an engineer or something. So he would make sure everything was working properly in the building before this
Right.
fellow bought it and so forth. And he would be in charge of updating certain buildings.
The maintenance, yeah.
So he gets a call from his boss. His boss says, listen, I want to send you to Paris for about 5 years.
5
He said,
years.
Paris, I just bought a house here. Oh, don't worry about it. We can take care of that. We'll pay the mortgage on it while you're gone. And we'll put you up in an apartment in Paris and supply a car for you and so forth.
Sounds like a pretty dream come true.
Yeah, so what was interesting was when he started managing this one building, workers weren't always showing up, certainly not on time, if at all. And then he realized that there is a difference between Europe, or let's say specifically France, and the United States. In the United States, we live to work.
Right.
In France, they work to
To
live.
live.
Except for ours, we don't work at all.
Exactly. Or we go to Italy. Italy's the worst. Where, yes, 100%, I think that we make a mistake many times where, like you said, we live to work. Terrible, terrible mistake. Now, there's nothing wrong with being passionately involved with your work and being excited about work, but it's not why we work. We don't work because we work. We work because we need to make a living. And we need to be able to hopefully live comfortably enough that we don't have to worry about those things, so that we can eventually, or not eventually, but simultaneously, be able to live a very meaningful and purposeful life.
Your characterization leaves out a segment of workers. How about those with artistic talents, musicians, artists, rabbis?
Right.
What do rabbis do when they retire?
Well, it's the same exact thing. Even in the world of arts, it's not that you shouldn't be passionate about what you do. And by the way, many people in the arts never really retire.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. No one's telling you have to retire. In America, it's a thing to retire. I think you go back 100 years, who retired? Nobody. It wasn't a thing to retire ever.
Well, that was-
Until you weren't able to go to work
that was their
physically.
lifestyle.
100%, but it came
you
from that
live on a
mindset.
farm, you gotta keep on working to, put food on the table.
There was no pension coming your way when you retired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but today, because of those benefits, what ended up happening was that people work so they can get to the retirement stage.
Yeah, but then it could be too late.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
now you're older.
Yep.
Are you healthy?
Yeah, I mean, how many stories you hear that somebody retired and the day after they retired, they dropped dead? I mean,
Right.
100%. Yeah, so that's why retirement has to be taken with many grains of salt. And it depends why you're retiring. It shouldn't just be retiring from the stress of the commute, of the work ethic, and all those types of things. It should be that now you can finally be fully expressive in what you always wanted to do. Some people retire and they finally able to take on these volunteer projects that they always felt passionate about. That's amazing. So that's exactly, that's what, if retirement is about that, that's good. I want to conclude with this, which in 1972, the Rebbe turned 70. Now, in today's day and age, 70 is way past retirement. Some people are trying to retire as early as 60, 61, 62. And back then, I think 70 was a little closer to age of retirement. And you have to understand that in that point in time, Chabad was at the start of its real expansion. In the 50s and 60s, it slowly started branching out. The 70s was the big outburst and the big explosion of Chabad's work around the world, opening new Chabad centers, opening all those types of things, outreach, etc. having the shluchim open Chabad houses around the world. In 1972, the Rebbe turned 70. The Rebbe was working, probably over 100 hours a week. 70 years old, if not more. The Rebbe met countless. The Rebbe received thousands of letters every single day. Thousands. The USPS knew that this was the most mailed address in I think even the entire America, if not New York. I think after the White House was the most mailed address during those 40 years. Rebbe received thousands of letters a day. He responded to them daily. After that, 3 times a week, the Rebbe spent about 6 to 7 hours every night after the entire day, starting from 10 p.m. till about 3, 4, 5 in the morning, meeting people for private audiences. We don't know when the Rebbe slept, and the Rebbe was around the entire day during prayers and everything. And many people told the Rebbe, you're 70 years old, it's your 70th birthday, maybe time to retire. Maybe time to slow down. Maybe don't retire. Slow it down a little bit. Take it easy. So the Rebbe held a farbring and a gathering in honor of his birthday, and this is what he said. First of all, he said, not only am I not retiring, but I'm actually launching a campaign that in honor of my 70th birthday, which is going into my 71st year of life, I am launching a campaign to open 71 new institutions this year. Not just am I not backing down, I'm opening 71 new institutions this year. 71 new institutions. Insane. Buildings, centers, communities, 71 over the next 12 months. That was number one, the Rebbe said. And over the next 10 years, the Rebbe just kept on growing. And the Rebbe spoke about that after decades of achievement, what ends up happening a lot of times is that it's simply unjust what happens to these senior citizens. Senior citizens is the retirement age. Seniors doesn't mean 80s. Seniors mean 65 plus. That it's simply not fair that we shut out the elderly from productive life. Because people are productive for tens of years, for decades in this world, and suddenly, you're a senior citizen, so you're not worth as much. Right? You're not valued in society as much as a 30-year-old, as a 40-year-old. And you think about it, it's kind of opposite. Really, someone with that much experience should be valued even more. Right. Not less, more. A 65-year-old, yes, he doesn't have the energy as much as a 20, 30-year-old, but they have the experience that a 23-year-old can only dream of. Right? And it's very sad because they're suddenly undeserving recipients of this unjust ungratefulness for every time the younger generation takes their positions in the workforce. And a lot of times, people above 65, they're just grateful that their grandchildren or children take a half hour off their day to spend time with them. As if these people are unproductive people. As if the half hour a day is what's making their life. No, these people are 65 years old. I already spoke about this. That what happened suddenly? That these people suddenly are a different class of citizens. Why? Why is that? So obviously, the Rebbe continued during this farbring, and the Rebbe said, on the one hand, you can justify it because, like we mentioned, a 70-year-old doesn't have the strength as a 30-year-old. So it's partially justified because they just don't have that zest. They don't have that energy that any younger person has, right? But this, the Rebbe continued, that is simply unfair. Because how do you measure someone's worth in society? Is it by energy? Who says? Who says it's about the energy you have? Right? Maybe it's about the insight that someone can contribute. Someone with 40 years of experience in the workforce has a lot more to give insight to a younger person, right? Mark, I remember you telling me that what you were doing in your work, it took a few people to accomplish because you had the experience. You know exactly what these people, it takes years for them to train it in, years. And even though you don't have the energy as a 25-year-old, they're maybe ready to put in 12 hours a day, and you're only ready to put in 6 to 8 hours a day. It doesn't make a difference. What you contribute could be a lot more, right? So is it an improvement or a decline when someone gets older? Who says? Who said it's a decline? Maybe it's an improvement.
A lot of the work, is mental more than physical. So if mental, most people are still sharp. Physically is another story.
Exactly.
And I can't do some of the things that I used to do, but.
Exactly. And the Rebbe concluded the Farbrengen with this line. Rebbe said, yeah, if you take a 20-year-old versus the 20-year-old's grandmother dancing at a wedding, the 20-year-old can dance hours upon hours at a wedding. Doesn't tire. And the grandmother, after a few minutes, gets tired, right? But this was the Rebbe's main point. Who says that a man's purpose and a person's purpose in this world is to dance hours upon hours with no end? A person's mission in this world is not to have the most energy. That's not what the mission in this world. That's not why you were placed in this world. You were placed in this world with a mission to make this world a brighter, holier, more purposeful and meaningful place. Who says that can't be done at the age of 65? Who says that can't be done at the age of 85? It's not an age thing. It's not a stage thing. People at the age of 20 do it with their energy, and people at the age of 65 do it with their experience or with other things. Everyone has what to contribute to the world at large to make this world a holier place. So the Rebbe says, don't tell me to retire, slow down at age 70, because I know that what I can do with my followers, with my chassidim and my shluchim, is to make the world an even brighter place by opening 71 new institutions. So the mistake that retired people can make, or people planning for retirement, is that you think that suddenly now, let me have a bunch of peasant years, like Rebbe Kusil said. Let me have a bunch of peasant years. Let me pick up my feet. Let me be able to watch TV. Peasant is like, when people used to go to the inn, they used to go drink and just sit and do nothing.
Oh.
Not work, basically. Just enjoy life by drinking, going out with, just doing a bunch of social activities without meaning.
Oh.
If you look at number 1 on the footnote, on the page, the life of bores. Just meaningless. That if that's what retirement is about, then really retirement is not a good thing. Judaism does not believe in such a retirement. Just because you are not working anymore, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing anything. It doesn't mean you should live the life of a bore. On the contrary, now you have the biggest advantage over anyone that has to commute every day. You are able to study more Torah. You are able to do more mitzvahs at peace. You're able to do more things. You're able to volunteer your time and your insight and your experience to people who cannot or are not as privileged as you, who cannot retire. Right? So you have so much more to contribute that life is far from over. Retirement is not about moving to Florida and playing mahjong and playing golf. There's nothing wrong with doing that, by the way. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with doing those things. But if that's what life is about, then we have a mistake. If life is about retiring to do those, that's the mistake. If life is about retiring so you can enjoy life and be at peace and be able to make the world a better place with more tranquility, that's the best retirement you can think of. So ultimately, what Rabbi Yitzhak, what he was telling the Rebbe, if you're blessing me with longevity, with long life, but with peasant years, no thank you. I'd rather have a meaningful 70 years of life than a meaningless 100 years. I don't want that. I want a meaningful 100 years, 70 years. And if you give me 100, make sure it's meaningful. So l'chaim to that. L'chaim that when we plan for retirement, or that when we retire, it's not about just retiring and picking our feet up, but it's actually using out all that amazing time that we have suddenly, that we never thought we would have, to use that out and make that world such a kinder place. Use your experience, teach others. Mark, like when you tell me what you do with helping those senior citizens do the taxes, that's a perfect example of using your knowledge and experience to help someone who not necessarily is able to do that. Right? So I think we tend to forget and lose focus and track of what retirement is about. But this was the Rebbe's view on retirement, and
yeah, but I think people make a mistake. Like when I was retiring, people would come up to me in the office and say, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I would say, "I don't know." I'll figure it out eventually.
Right.
And, you know, we can't overplan this thing.
100%.
You just have to wait for it to come to you.
Also, because however much we think we plan, and I'm not talking from experience, I'm talking from what I hear from people, when you plan it, usually it's a whole different world. Like you think you know what retirement is, but when it starts to hit you, then you can start creating a structure for yourself
There
eventually.
is an adjustment period. I mean, I
Of course.
remember when
Just
I
like anything.
retired, I mean, the first day after I retired.
Like, what now?
You know, I'm not worn out, but I woke
No, you
up
said
and-
what now?
Yeah, you're looking around like, what am I going to do? Because, you know, you used over 15 plus years, you get up, you go somewhere and work, and now you don't have to. So you need at least a month to realize what's going on.
100%. 100%. There's an adjustment period, but I think more importantly, you have to realize it's a mind shift. What retirement is. It's not just to be able to do nothing. It's now we have the time to do what we really should be doing. When I speak to people who are in their 40s, I find that they're much harder to deal with when it comes to doing Jewish things because, understandably, they're swamped. They're swamped. So even though someone who's retired, it can take them double the amount of time to do something. Like they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Granted, it could take longer for someone who's not as busy to get something done. But the difference is now you actually have the time to focus on the important things in life. So let's make our time valuable. Let's use that out for the important things in life.